the high-octane world of motorsports, the race to innovation never stops. At Hendrick Motorsports, we're constantly pushing the boundaries to stay ahead of the competition.
History making tonight for Hendrick Motorsports as they become the all-time winningest organization.
Hi, I'm Jeff Gordon. Here at Hendrick Motorsports, we've always believed that innovation is the key to winning. It's not just about speed on the track, but also about precision, reliability, and constant improvement. That's why Hendrick Motorsports' partnership with Hexagon is so critical to our success. Their cutting-edge solutions have revolutionized the way we approach our craft.
I'm Roy Crump, the Quality Control Supervisor at Hendrick Motorsports. Our partnership with Hexagon has been crucial in ensuring the highest quality standards. We use their advanced metrology solutions, including coordinate measuring machines and laser scanners, to inspect and verify every component. This technology allows us to detect even the slightest deviations, ensuring every part meets our rigorous specifications. With Hexagon's technology, we can ensure that every car that rolls out of our shop is not only fast, but also safe and reliable. It's the commitment to quality that helps us maintain our competitive edge.
I'm Michael Tumman, the Engine Engineering Manager at Hendrick Motorsports. Our engines are a critical part of our success, and we take great pride in our record of engine wins in NASCAR.
Checkered flag in the air!
Hendrick Engine Shop, 500 wins, that's incredible.
Thanks to Hexagon's precision measurement and analysis tools, we're able to optimize engine performance and durability. Hexagon's solutions allow us to perform detailed inspections, ensuring our engines deliver maximum power while maintaining reliability. This technology helps us push the limits and set new records in the sport.
William Byron wins the 300th race on the Cup Series for team owner Rick Hendrick.
With Hexagon Solutions, we've been able to enhance our car's performance, reliability, and safety. It's this innovative approach that gives us the edge we need in our constant pursuit of victory.
Technology and innovation are the heart of motorsports. With partners like Hexagon, we're not just keeping up with the race to innovation, we're leading it.
At Hendrick Motorsports, we're committed to excellence. With Hexagon, we're bringing innovation to life and driving towards an even more exciting future.
Hendrick Motorsports and Hexagon, leading the race to innovation.
So, believe it or not, there's a tremendous number of similarities between Hendrick Motorsports and us in the manufacturing space. And you can see the overlap. They're incredibly fast-paced, and so are we. We're competitive, and I know, looking out at the crowd, everyone here is super competitive in the field. And then precision. Sports typically talk about games won or lost by inches. In the world of NASCAR, it's actually microns. And then an innovator's mindset. They have all the data in place and all the subsystems and all the software in place to be a world-class manufacturer, but that also allows their innovation to see the light of day. But if you were to talk to them today and ask them what's the big differentiator for them, it's actually data. They collect an enormous amount of data. They are digitally native. And when you see these rooms full of people every time at the races, they're not watching the race. They're actually watching the car and all the data that's coming up on it. They're optimizing the car in real time. They're changing their strategy based on the data in real time. And this is the same sort of information that they also have in their manufacturing facilities. And so the key thing we're going to talk about next is data and how critical it is. So one of the challenges in manufacturing is silos, and I think this is common throughout most industries. When you look at the concern over data silos in big corporates, in particular manufacturing, 98% of manufacturers that were polled feel as if they are suffering from silos and silos of data. I've been in this industry a very long time, and surprisingly over that period of time, that number seems to creep up versus go down. 88% believe that data sharing could improve their quality, and 86% believe it would speed their time to market. So the last 2 points are super hopeful. There's a recognition on the criticality of data, but we're still struggling with the data silos and making use of that data by eliminating them. When I go visit a customer, I usually think in terms of three key areas with them, in particular in manufacturing. You've got a design group. They're making the designs for the part that needs to be built. You have a make group or a manufacturing group. They're the group that actually makes that design. And then you have an inspect group, and they're the people that are making sure that the product that came out of manufacturing matches the one in design. And these are your typical three biggest silos, in addition to being led by typically different leaders, different budget cycles, and in some instances, not even being in the same state. You can see why these are typical data silos. There is ways today, though, to get around the silos. And what you see here today is a depiction of a digital thread. There are so many new products on the market today that will allow data sharing, seamless data sharing between each of these three groups. And you no longer have to worry about taking the silos down as much as you want to get a data sharing and a data platform that allows that data to flow. It's surprisingly little data, and it's surprisingly inexpensive on how you can get the right data at the right time to the right place. And so I urge you to really look into data platforms as a way to really reduce the confusion associated with silos. I can't stress this enough. True digitization does not include paper. I got to be honest, I really love paper, but my generation is the generation that loves paper. I was sitting in the kitchen one day with my two daughters and my wife, and I was making a grocery list. And of course, I had my pen and I had my paper, and I was making a grocery list. And I looked at my daughters, who were 2 feet away from me, and I said, "Do you need anything from the grocery store?" Of course, they're Gen Z, so they didn't look up, didn't acknowledge, and just simply sent me by text what they wanted. Me being a different generation, I took those texts and I translated them right onto my paper. Then during all of this, my wife created her own list and she slid that over. So what did I do? I looked at her list and I damn well put it on my own paper. And then I did the big sin. I looked at the paper and said, I'm not carrying this in a grocery store. And so I took a picture of it and I looked at my daughters and said, I just digitized it, much to their horror. So true digitization is not the use of paper. When I told my colleagues about this over dinner, we had a sober moment when they relayed to me that my grocery list stories actually sounded like their digitization program. So what they were doing was taking all the big binders out of manufacturing, all the binders everywhere in the company. They were going through them, they were writing on them to make sure that they were accurate, and then they were putting the whole thing in a massive scanner and sending it to the cloud, and then they handed out iPads. That is no different than the grocery store. All of that information is still on paper. It's unsearchable, it's inaccurate, and you can't update it. So again, just want to make sure that we all agree that paper is not good. So accuracy from the start, this is what you ultimately want to have. You want to have your processes in place so that you know the accuracy is going through the entire length of your operation. So when you think in terms of the three groups that I talked about earlier, so you have design, you have make, and you have inspect. And you can actually use very inexpensive software to optimize within those. Sorry. Better? Better. You can actually use software to actually optimize within those silos, but the real benefit comes when you can tie those silos together and start optimizing the system. And so system optimization is what allows you to go to the next level with data and native data. Once you've done that, now you can get into the interesting stuff. We talk a lot about digital twins. I'm sure at your manufacturing groups, you have a digital twin that's being simulated in design. You have a digital twin that is probably being created in manufacturing. And then you have, no doubt, a digital twin in inspect. But how do you share those across your silos, and how do you do the comparisons associated with them so that you can actually benefit from the comparisons that a digital twin will offer you? And so now you can start thinking about AI techniques. You can think about machine learning, both of which take an enormous amount of data in real time and highly digital. The last thing that's super exciting is you can then start the process of asset performance management. So now you can optimize the machines within your manufacturing environment. And now you've entered a whole different world. You've actually entered the world of Hendricks Motorsports. So this is my favorite subject. And I talked about my two young daughters who, well, I guess they're not young anymore. They're Gen Z and they're in university. But we've got a big challenge coming up to us with regards to manufacturing in the workforce. So by 2033, we're going to have about 4 million jobs available in manufacturing. And by the same token, we're only going to have about 2 million employees that are capable of filling it. So we have a 2 million person shortfall, 2 million employee shortfall over the next about 10 years. And so it's super critical that we make sure we understand the workforce that's entering our facility and get them up and running quickly. When I talk to my colleagues, they're always talking about how do I get an employee up to speed quickly and get them operating the machines fast. And that's why this is so critical, because Gen Z is very different. So when I look at these photos and I think back to the way that my daughters grew up, life for them is very different. It's digitally enabled, it's digitally native. They had the world's information at their fingertip, and that's how they grew up. When you look at these pictures, this is the progression that my own daughters went through. So early grammar school, they were putting together robots. By high school, they were optimizing and automating those robots in competitions. All of this is reflective of the new STEM programs that are in school. And then they enter the workforce, and that picture is the one that they expect to see, a true digital environment on the manufacturing floor. When I talk about paper, this group doesn't know the value of paper, and they do know the challenges of it. They grew up without paper, and that's why it's important that we change the way that we interact with them. When my kids went to school, they had a backpack and a laptop. They did their assignments, and then those assignments were simply uploaded to the cloud to their teacher, and it was a done transaction. So in no way was there any paper involved, and that's a big deal as we go forward. So when we think in terms of manufacturing companies, 44% are curbing the impact of these skill shortages with automation, which I think is super critical. 56% of them expect that they'll have a future benefit from their own automation. What's nice about Gen Z is that they would agree with this. Gen Z is the generation that doesn't see automation as a threat to their job. They actually see it as complementary to their job. And as my daughters would say, how else would you do it? So when they enter your workforce, they're going to want to see the automation, and they're going to, if you do not have it, they're going to want to hear about your plans for it, because again, how else would you do it? 70% of US manufacturers also have a training program. And I think that the number should be a little higher, but I love the fact that we recognize that we want to train our employees, train them quickly, and continue to train them as advances are made. And so this is super key in better understanding how they learn. This is a typical training session, and I don't think this will ever go away, but it will be greatly reduced. This is a group getting together. They're working hard. They're being trained on potentially something welding related. But if you look at the woman in the back, you see her face of concern. Either she's not having a good training experience, or she's scared they're going to slide that book over to her, and that's her training material. Gen Zers are not expecting us to slide greasy books across and say, here's the book, go read it, and we'll come back for the next round of training. Their expectations actually look more like this. And this is the expectation. When I show the two pictures to groups of Gen Zers, sometimes they say that's not how it is, and that's a concern. I think as we move forward, we have the way that we do a lot of training today in this type of training, which is constant and consistent with the way that they learn. And we'll end up meeting in the middle somewhere, depending on your manufacturing environment. But this, again, is what they're expecting. Again, though, I just want to stress the point that no matter how your training looks, training is super important. And if you're looking to innovate, training is an investment in your people, and it allows your it allows your innovation to see the light of day. Accelerate time to market. When you put this all together, by definition, you're going to have accuracy from the start, but you're also going to accelerate your time to market. I was using this last group of slides to introduce you to another really innovative partner of Hexagon. And this is a company who has put it all together and have gone to the next level of optimization and manufacturing technology. They have the most sophisticated area that I have ever been exposed to. And so let's see what they're up to.
We're at the Divergent factory in Torrance, California. It's the world's first universal constructor for vehicles. What that really means is that we've built a complete system that is a little bit like the Star Trek replicator. What you're doing is having a design team choose a set of vehicle attributes. That vehicle could be anything from an autonomous land, air, or sea drone, or it could be a two-seat hypercar like the 21C.
What I want to remind everyone of is innovation can happen anywhere and on any scale. So as you go through this journey and you begin the adoption of meeting your new workforce in the middle, digitizing your infrastructure and keeping it digital by eliminating your paper, you're well on your way to allowing innovation to see the light of day and to drive an innovative culture. And so with that, I thank you for your time and really appreciate our time together.